When I first started, how in 2020, 2021, when things were going crazy, I actually like a little bit more of the negotiations that we have now because there isn't as much, you don't have 20, 30 offers on a home. So
That's true too.
I do actually like actually being able to negotiate if home's been actually sitting on the market for a little longer. We have some buyer power. But yes, yeah, it's been an interesting roller coaster here since I started.
Hi, everybody. Welcome. This is Andrea Gordon, your host for Realizations. And today I have kind of an unusual one with you. Greg Verhey is here from Pelego, which is a real estate company located in Oakland, California. And we're going to flip the script a little bit, and he's going to be asking me questions because Greg is a relatively new agent and wants to understand how I do things. And so I'm here to answer his questions on all of that. You all know that I founded this because I'm attempting to educate the American public about what it is real estate agents actually do. I got pretty angry over the NAR DOJ lawsuits and the commission lawsuits, and I realized that the profound lack of respect that we had for our profession has to do more with the fact that people don't understand what it is that we do. That's why I founded the podcast. And Greg, welcome. Thank you so much for coming today. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. I'm honored to be here. So I've always looked up to you, and I know we've only had a few random conversations here and there on some listings that you've had, but you've always been prompt in getting back to me. And so anyway, but I've always kind of seen you out there. And anyway, so it's an honor to be here. Thank you.
Thank you. So, what do you want to know? What can I answer for you?
Well, I think we kind of connected recently. I saw you had a quote recently about transparent pricing, and I just with the NAR DOJ lawsuit that you had talked about. I've listened to some of your other podcasts. I'm really curious your take on the transparent pricing, more realistic pricing. I know
Hmm.
I've been more on the buyer's side, and since I've been in the business like 5, 6 years now. So being on the buyer's side, I feel it's definitely a challenge. The conversations I'm having with new buyers, trying to explain the NAR DOJ lawsuit, and it's because of more transparency, and this is why we're doing it. And then, oh, by the way, this house is listed $300,000 under asking, and anyway.
Right,
So
right.
yeah, I'm just curious as an experienced agent, what are your thoughts on that? Or yeah,
Well, I hate it, obviously.
yeah,
I think it's ridiculous and it's wrong. People are coming, they're using fuel, they're using their life energy, their time. They're coming from all over the place to look at properties in the East Bay. And we have this very unfortunate tendency to underprice. And the problem is if you brook that trend and don't underprice, then your property will sit on the market longer and you will look bad. Consequently, listing agents tend to price their properties super low, like to the point where something that's listed for 899,000 might actually go for 1,500,000. The other day I was part of a bidding war on a house on Colton in Montclair that was listed for 995, and I heard it went above 1,600,000. That's not appropriate. That's not right. And I always prepare a comparative market analysis for my buyer clients every single time we're writing an offer because these prices are so out of control that they have absolutely no bearing on reality. And because of that, it's part of our job is to bring our buyer clients to reality as to what something will sell for. I happen to have sold two houses on that same block where that house was located that both went for over 1,700,000. So I was able to disabuse my buyers of the notion that they could come in low. They came in, by the way, at 1,300,000, and they were in the bottom third of the offers that were received, just so you
right,
know.
yeah,
So that's one part of it. The other part of it is just making sure that your buyer clients understand all about the buyer broker agreement. The NAR and the DOJ did us absolutely no favors in creating this situation. What should have happened, honestly, is buyers should be paying their agents and sellers should be paying their agents. That would have been clear, clean, easy to stomach, not a problem. Whereas now you have a lot of younger agents who haven't been in, like I can talk to anybody about anything. I'm 69 years old. I don't care. I'm just
Yeah.
going to tell people the truth and be authentic.
Right, right. Yep.
Whereas if you're a baby agent and you've only been in the business for a few years, it's really tough to ask your buyers to pay you when they never ever have had to before. Now,
Right.
obviously, a buyer is going to just deduct whatever they have to pay you off of the price of the house. And or, if you call up an agent and the agent says, no, the seller's not willing to pay
Yep.
commission, it wouldn't be right. It would be unethical, but it is your prerogative not to show that house if you don't want to. So
Yep.
that's a whole other thing here that's been created by this stupidity. It's just stupid, is what it
Yeah.
is.
Yeah.
So getting to the point where you can talk honestly and openly with your buyers about the buyer broker agreement and to let them know that in 90% of the cases, the sellers are actually paying the commission still. You have to ask for your commission percentage on the new form for the purchase contract. And they may come back and say, no, I'm only willing to pay 1%, or I'm willing to pay 3%. But if they come back saying 1%, then that buyer has agreed with you ahead of time to pay you
Yep.
2.5% in the event that the seller is not paying. And they will have to pay you the difference. That's just all there is to it because you
Yeah.
work hard for your money and you deserve to be paid.
Right. Yeah. It's yeah. It's in some ways. I mean, the market, the way it's when I first started, how in 2020, 2021, when things were going crazy, I actually like a little bit more of the negotiations that we have now because there isn't as much. You don't have 20, 30 offers on a home. So
That's true
I,
too.
I, I do actually like actually being able to negotiate if a home's been actually sitting on the market for a little longer. It's, I've got have some buyer power. But yes, yeah, it's been an interesting roller coaster here since I started. So,
Yeah, no kidding. Oh my
yeah,
God. Yeah,
yeah,
you've been in it for exactly the weirdest time in the history of real estate. So there you
right,
go.
right, yeah, yeah,
So what are your
yeah.
other questions of me?
Let's see. But you had mentioned I heard on another podcast. You had said you're just an independent person. You don't have a team with you, correct?
No,
I mean, you've got a
I've got people that work for
assistant,
me. That's
yes,
different.
but
And
not
so
other agents, correct?
no, because honestly, when you have a team and you're a top producer, there are two or three things that happen. Number one, you are going to end up having to mentor those people quite a bit. They're going to be asking
Yeah,
you all kinds of questions all the time. And if you're
right,
moving
right,
fast and you're trying to make deals, having to stop and explain to somebody why they've sold the house twice is really hard.
right.
And then it also creates liability for you when you work with people who don't know what they're doing.
Yeah,
So I would have, if I were to have a team, I would need to have people that were very experienced
yeah,
agents. And most people who are very experienced agents don't want to be on a team where they're not going to make 100% of the money. So it's like a catch 22 in a certain way.
right,
So what
right.
I do is I have two listing coordinators who help me. By the way, I am 92% listings at this point in my
Yeah,
career.
yeah,
My
yeah,
typical buyer is a seller whose house I've sold. That's my
yeah.
typical buyer. And then I usually refer out everybody else.
Okay,
Both of my listing coordinators happen to be buyer agents as well. And they pay me a referral fee when they sell something to somebody I've referred to them. So that's how I work around that. I
gotcha.
also have a
Yeah,
full-time TC that's dedicated to me. Compass did that. And I also have a marketing team that I work
yep,
with at like everybody at Compass. And I also have an outside ad agency that I work with for my social media called Agent Upgrade. And that's who I work with.
yep,
Being part of a team, again, when you become a team leader, you are basically a cheerleader, educator, therapist, all the same things we are usually for our clients, you are for your team.
yes, yeah,
And I didn't want to do that. But
yeah,
it works for some people. It just wasn't the method that I chose.
right. And do you start when you start out as a newer agent, were you mostly on the buy side? Is that kind of a normal
Normal trajectory,
transition
yes,
trajectory? Yeah.
absolutely. Usually, what happens is for about the first 5 years, you're primarily working with buyers. Think about it. If you show up at a listing appointment and I show up at a listing appointment for a $3 million house, which agent is the seller going to pick? The reason why is because it's such an important asset that it
Okay.
will be very unusual if they would pick the less experienced agent. So
Yeah,
because of
that's
that, a very typical trajectory in real estate is for a buyer agent to work with somebody, and then 5 years after they've bought that house, or 7 years
right.
after they bought that
Yeah,
house, they call that agent up and want to list that house because now they're ready for the next house, or
right,
they're moving, or
right.
something's happened.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
that's a very
that's
typical way things work.
yeah,
And once you get into the groove of being a listing agent, that's when you can advertise yourself as a listing agent, because, the neighbors all see that you put the house on the market,
right,
and in the meantime, before you get a bunch of listings, holding open every house you possibly can, especially on the first open houses if you
right.
can.
Yeah,
Now, a pet peeve of mine is that baby agents always want to hold open my most expensive stuff. I'm not letting someone who's a baby agent hold my most
right,
expensive stuff open. And
right, right.
when I first started in the business, I sold trailers, for God's sake. I
Yeah,
sold condos, I sold small properties that were not that expensive. And it's a very good way to get your feet wet and know how to do things. And also, those
right.
people are extraordinarily appreciative of what we do.
Yeah, yeah,
They'll send you a gift basket at the end of the
right.
transaction. They
Yeah,
don't
yeah, right.
once you get up over $2 million, they expect you to buy them a refrigerator or
Yeah,
something. I mean,
yeah,
it's different, you know?
yeah, yeah. I definitely, I've felt I mean, there's nothing like getting a client a home or a couple a home. There's that feeling, especially when I think, once again, it's always satisfying. But when you get somebody who I've sold $300,000 condos to, homes just under two million. So, but the lower end home, like the satisfaction people get when we end up getting
Oh,
a
it's
home,
huge.
it's just, I
It's
don't know, it's like,
enormous.
yeah, it's
Yeah.
so fun, especially we put in a few offers on places. Anyway, it's very, very gratifying.
And the other part of it,
Yeah.
I mean, for me politically, I don't want to be an elitist jerk. So I will, if I like the property and I feel safe in the neighborhood walking around,
Yeah,
I will take on whatever it is that appeals to me. I don't, I recently, not that long ago, sold an optician's, it was a commercial condo that was $239,000. And,
yeah,
it's the same amount of time to do that deal as it is to do the $2.3 million house sale.
right.
So you have to be judicious about those kinds of things, but at the same time, it felt really good. That was client's parents' business that they were retiring and selling.
Yeah,
And it was important to me, not that I sold a business, I sold the space. Let me be clear about that. We
yeah,
don't sell businesses. But it was important to me because it was a continuation of my relationship with that particular client. I did a good job for
yep,
their parents. Do you think that when they go to sell their house in San Ramon, they're not going to call me? Of course they are.
right. Exactly. Yeah,
So
yeah, yeah.
so that's how you have to think strategically when you're taking clients on, and figure out how to deal with your time,
Yeah,
but never ever be an elitist jerk. Back whenever
yeah,
there's an economic downturn, by the way, the houses that are still moving are generally speaking going to be in the lower ranges, and you have to be
yeah,
flexible, and you have to have enough of a
yeah,
reputation selling those kinds of houses that you can keep food on your table by selling those kinds of houses. I knew people that basically starved during the 2008 downturn
yeah.
because they were only selling the $3 million houses. And wealthy people are
Sure.
smart. When there's a downturn, they just stay put.
Right.
They don't have to sell, so they don't.
Yeah.
And
Right.
those people were
Yeah.
really suffering at that point in time.
Yeah. 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 I feel it's tough, like you were just talking about, but as a newer agent, the just not having the experience and trying to tell that to a potential buyer or seller. So especially when you're going up sometimes against, top agents, and, it can be a challenge for sure. But as long as I'm honest, and, if I can't get the answers, I, go out and get it and get back to them. I've been in the fitness industry for years. So I've dealt with lots of clients, high school and college athletes, to people in their 80s. So, I know how to relate to people. And I think, if you're honest and straightforward, and, it's like, yes, I'm not the experienced agent, but I'm gonna work harder than anybody else. So, but
And that's what you can sell, how you can sell yourself when
yeah,
you're in those situations. Have you
yeah.
been plumbing your CRM from your athletics days
Oh yeah,
for
yeah.
clients?
No, and
Good.
I've sold a couple of homes to my, or helped the buyer and helped the seller on one of my clients. So yeah, so it's, so
Great.
it's good. So,
Yeah, I think that's
but
one
yeah,
of the biggest mistakes that young agents make, is in not connecting enough with their sphere. and
Yeah.
not sending marketing materials out to them,
Yeah.
and not just simply having the guts to say, hey, I've started a new business. This is what I'm doing now. I really appreciated your support in the past. Would you be willing to support me now by either referring a friend of yours, or if you yourself are thinking of selling or buying,
Yeah.
connecting up with me? It could really help me.
Yeah. And I think that's worked like 9 out of 10 times. I have had a client who was selling their home and then buying a home, and I thought I was going to get both. And I thought, okay, they understand that I can list with me. I totally understand that. They've got more experience, and I've been more on the buy side. She's seen me do stuff, and then she ends up going with somebody else on the buy side. So, but she was also like, "You're my trainer." It's like, it's like so.
That's another
But
thing. Yeah,
yeah,
it's like if somebody has a really ingrained idea of who you are,
right,
it
right.
might damage
Yeah,
their ability to
yeah,
relate to you in
yeah,
that regard.
yeah,
So I might come up with a branding piece that talked about that,
yeah,
and talked about the commonality between being a trainer and being a real estate agent, and how the two intersect, and why it
yeah.
is that it's a perfect segue for
It's
you.
true. Yeah, 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 yeah. So, and I heard you say on another podcast, and I'm not stealing it, but there's something about doing the basics. And
Hmm.
I've been in the training industry for years, and I've worked with people they know every small muscle group in the feet and the hands, and they have two clients. And it's like, and
Yeah.
you've got to relate to people. You've got to show some of the basic stuff, show up on time, return phone calls, and,
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
there's some of the basics that,
Yeah. And also just being, I mean, I think being present is the absolute most important thing that anybody can do in
yeah.
any
And
business.
yeah,
You
do
know,
it, do it, do what you say you're going to do. So,
yeah, exactly.
right. Um, Funny story, because I joined Compass to begin with my first 2 years. So I started literally got onboarded the first week at Compass, and then everything shuts down, for the second week in March. And I remember being on the sales calls each week. And at the end of the sales calls, they go on and they talk, okay, any upcoming listings and all that stuff. And I remember you going on there. And I think one time you had 3 or 4 homes listed, and I could see in the chats, everybody's like, how does she have 3 or 4 homes? And then the next week, the same thing. So, and I'm going like, okay, who is this Andrea woman right now? It's like, so anyway, it was really cool to see. I know you've been in the industry a long time, so but you're obviously doing something right. So it was cool. So how did you get into real estate?
I'm a theater director and producer
That's
and
right.
playwright. And I produced a play that was absolutely wonderful, but it got bad reviews and nobody came. And it was an equity production. So that means the actors were union and they were getting a hell of a lot of money. And I had borrowed, wow, like $60,000 from relatives and
Yeah,
friends to
yeah,
get the show up. And I got belligerent when it wasn't doing well because I knew it was good. And it was just so annoying to me that the word of this one person, and by the way, it was a play about the Beatles. And the critic wrote his bad review about the play in rhyming couplets using all Beatles songs. Just to give you an idea, he wasn't that bright a guy. He had to have been thinking about
yeah,
it for like 4 or 5 days before he put
yeah,
it
yeah,
together.
yeah, yeah,
Anyway,
yeah, yeah,
so I got mad and I just kept running it and kept losing more money, and it was awful. And I finally had to shut the show down, and I owed a bunch of people money.
yeah,
And I went and I got a job at an advertising agency by basically lying my way into it. And within 1 year, I had paid back 100% of the money that I owed all those people.
good, yeah,
And I asked my boss if he knew that I knew nothing about technology when I got hired. And he said, yeah, but I figured you'd figure it out. And you seemed like you'd be a great salesperson. So I thought to myself, I'm a great salesperson. What else can I sell? So I was caught between selling high-end cars because I like cars, and something bigger like real estate. And I went to some car dealerships, and all of the salespeople were men. So I knew
yeah,
that that was probably not going to be a go. And then I
yeah,
went to a real estate office, and all the salespeople were women. And I thought, okay, women can
yeah,
succeed in this business. So
yeah,
that's really how I ended up doing real estate. And because
yeah.
theater and real estate are pretty much analogous skill sets, just like training people is probably an analogous skill set,
Yep.
I made 6 sales my first month. And I've
Wow.
pretty well continued that all along.
Yeah, yeah,
And what I do is right around June, I start trolling for business for the next year.
Okay. Yeah.
So for example, this year I already have 26 listings coming on.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah.
That's how I do it. And
Yeah.
I space them out so that it works for me and for the sellers. But sometimes it gets kind of crazy because everybody wants to be on before May or everybody wants to be on before June
Right. Right. Yeah.
or
Yeah.
whatever. So
How do you, well, I know you've got a small team. I guess you got some buyers, but I had a couple deals going on last year at the same time. And I thought it was, I mean, I only had two, and I did actually think of you. I'm like, she can handle it. She's got like 3 or 4 listings sometimes at the same time. So anyways, but I was just, it can be a lot. So just
yeah,
a individual age. I mean, yes, I've got, a little bit of support here and there, but yeah, that's, it's impressive to do it basically on your own. And I know you got some assistance, but yeah.
I've got
So
wonderful assistants. And
yeah,
besides
yeah.
that, when you have been doing it for a while, you get into a rhythm and you actually
Yeah,
realize what's needed. There are some people that really need hand holding. There are other people
yeah,
that don't. There's
yeah,
some people that are going to do the wrong thing no matter what you tell them.
yeah.
You have to also ferret out the crazies when you're at the first
Right.
listing appointment. If somebody seems crazy then, by
Yeah,
the end of the transaction, they're going to be really crazy.
really
You
great.
don't
Yeah,
want
yeah,
to you don't want to
yeah,
deal with that. So
yeah,
you pick and choose what's going to be successful.
yeah.
Figure out what's going to be, if, for example, somebody calls you up and it's a condo building, no matter how nice they are, and there are 11 condos that are identical to theirs in the building that are on the market at the same time,
Yeah, yeah.
maybe don't take that listing.
Right. Yeah.
It'll feel good to take the listing, but you'll
Sure.
spend money on the photos, you'll spend money on the ads, and unless you've come
Yeah.
on $200,000 below everybody else, you're not going to sell it.
Yeah. I've seen that stress with some newer agents that have taken client or taken homes, and they're all excited about it. And I'm like, oh, that's great. But yeah, then it's sitting on the market for 3 or 4 months, and then you're having conversations with that seller, and it's like very uncomfortable. I'm like, okay,
Yeah.
well, maybe the buyer's side isn't too bad. So, are there any mistakes or things you would have done differently in the beginning that you?
Yes, except for the fact I'm choking a little bit.
No problem.
Um,
You don't like to think about it. That sounds like.
no, there are a few things. One is that if you have that sort of gut feeling that somebody's not a good person and you're already
Right.
stuck in a transaction with them, start documenting absolutely everything that they say to you, that you say to them, so that you
Yeah.
have a record of everything, because this is a very litigious society that we're in.
Yeah.
And you
Yeah.
will not escape being in real estate for 10, 20, or 30 years without getting sued. It's just going to happen. It's inevitable,
That's what I've
especially
heard.
in an area like the Bay Area
Yeah. Yeah.
where people have a lot of money. I mean, the median
Yeah.
house price in Berkeley is 1.2 million. And
Right.
isn't it approaching $1 million in Oakland at this point?
Yeah.
So
Yep.
so that's a lot of money. Those are people that can afford to hire a lawyer. They are going to try and figure out some way to get you if they feel like they overpaid, if something was not disclosed, if
Right.
if whatever. And the problem with those kinds of situations is that even if you did absolutely nothing wrong, they will still attempt to sue you because your real estate company has a big pocket, which is called
Right.
your errors and omission insurance,
Right.
and they will try to go after that. So just be
Yeah.
very careful. That's one thing. Another thing is don't be impressed by people. Be kind, be authentic, be honest. But like I've had a few occasions in my life where I've had very famous clients, and in one case I was so overawed by them that I was not at my best because
Ah,
I didn't just tell them the truth. What the clients are paying us for is to tell them the truth. I
right.
could have saved myself and everybody else a lot of grief by just saying, hey, the fact that you chose not to repair your foundation created this problem, and you really should just give them the money
Yeah.
in the situation. And I didn't do that. I thought their house was so, and I was beguiled by their house myself. I thought their house was so magnificent that somebody would overlook a very large foundation issue,
Right.
and they wouldn't. So don't be overawed by people. They put their pants on every morning just like you do.
Yeah.
They have feelings, emotions, and they need information. What is our purpose in a world of AI and the Zillows and all of the online stuff, if not to be absolutely great
Right.
with information for people. So
Yeah.
that would be
Yeah.
my biggest advice to
Yeah.
any young agent, is to just realize
Yeah.
that even if you think in the short run it's going to make somebody not like you, don't care about that. Just
Yeah.
tell them the truth.
Yeah. Yeah. I was at the random conference, not a real estate conference, but somebody was talking about AI and all this stuff, which it's going to change. That's a whole nother podcast probably.
Yeah.
but talking about there's certain things you can't replace, the one-on-one, the individual person, and the empathy and things like that. AI isn't going to give you empathy or anything like that.
Well, it
But
might if it develops a consciousness,
right,
but
that's true.
we won't go there right now.
Exactly.
Uh,
Yeah.
so what are some final questions that you have for me?
I guess what is what do you do marketing wise when you say you have 26? When you start marketing, give you one last question there. What do you do for marketing when you say do you go out and are you hitting all your sphere? Are you calling? Your I don't know, what's your process there?
I try to make contact with at least 5 people a day.
Yeah. Yeah.
At the very beginning of my career, I would hand out 5 cards a day. It didn't matter to whom. Now people don't hand out cards anymore, really, so
Yeah.
that's kind of not a thing. But beyond that, I send out a newsletter once a month. I send out statistical information once or twice a month. I am on social media every single day on all platforms. That's through this company that I work with. I always send out just listed cards on every single one of my listed listings. I also send out just sold cards on every single one of my listings.
Yep.
I always have a call to action on whatever marketing piece I put out. And that call to action is either call me for a CMA, or would you like me to take a look at your house and give you an idea of what you
Yep.
could do to best market it, what have you.
Yep.
Those kinds of calls to action really, really work. I
Yep.
have bus benches that I've had just forever up and
Yes.
down,
Yeah.
mostly
Yep.
College Avenue. And those are great because it's sort of subliminal. People know about me whether they know me or not. And
Right.
it's kind of funny. I have literally never put my picture on any of the bus benches, and people always think my picture is on the bus bench. Beyond that, I write the articles about real estate for both Montclair Living and for Berkeley Hills Living.
Okay.
So if there's some place where you could be the expert, let's
Right.
say, is there some trade publication for physical trainers, for
Right.
example? That would be a place to talk about real estate, because people who can afford a trainer usually can afford a house
Right.
or some such. So find places where you can be the expert. I have this podcast. It's actually got a lot of traction at this point,
Right.
which makes me feel really good.
Yeah.
I'm about to put a book out, which is called Realizations, which is based on a class that I taught at Compass. Were you there for that by any chance? I don't
No,
think
I
so.
wasn't. No, I don't think so.
Yeah,
No. No.
it
I
was
would have signed up.
Thank you. I think they're asking me to do it again. I don't know
Okay.
when it'll come up, but it's
Cool.
basically talking about how to be your authentic self, create your marketing around that, find your best fit customer, market
Right.
to those people, and how to basically create systems that keep you in business.
Yeah. Yeah. Nice.
So,
Cool. Love it.
well, thank
Nice.
you for being on my show today, Greg. And if by the way, I can vouch for Greg. He's a wonderful agent. So, people out there, if you need a very dynamic and extremely energetic buyer's agent, seller's agent in the Bay Area, please contact Greg Verhey. And how can they reach you?
I've got there's Instagram, Facebook. I have to upgrade my social media a little bit, so I'm not as strong on that, but I'm out there. So thank
Excellent.
you. I appreciate being on the show. This has been great. So appreciate it. So
Thank
thank you.
you.
All right. Take care. Thank you so much.
If you loved hearing from these incredible voices shaping real estate, you'll want to catch what's next. Click the video on screen to keep discovering more inspiring stories.